welcome President Barack Obama and Governor Mitt Romney.
The second presidential debate between Governor Mitt Romney and President Barack Obama put the men in a town hall setting. This gave them a chance to move around, interact, and created some opportunities and challenges at the same time. Let's take a look at the setup first. One of the advantages of the town hall setting is an arena in which to move. Candidates were able to move in this entire area, closer to the audience at times, closer to one another as well. The wraparound audience created camera angles, some from behind, when you had to look at the candidates from one direction, angles toward Barack Obama, other angles toward Mitt Romney. Some of those angles were from behind the audience. For a wider perspective, shots from a distance were available from cameras. And when they had close-ups, you could see the countdown timer as the candidates spoke. But one of the restrictions for the cameras for close-ups was to give the candidates a handheld microphone, which in a way kept them from gesturing too widely. But it also added energy to the one hand they could use to gesture, resulting in some conversationalizing as each of them spoke. When the hands move in the rhythm of speech, the eyes will focus on the hands to ask, well, does this make any sense? Is it matching up to anything the person is saying? Well, of course it is, because they're emphasizing points, but they're overcompensating because they only have one hand that they can use. The other hand is holding a microphone. So each of them tried to make points very, very emphatically over and over again. In some cases, the candidates used the action to describe things in the air.
Because I'm going to bring rates down across the board for everybody, but I'm going to limit deductions and exemptions and credits, particularly for people at the high end.
So Mitt Romney uses height, he uses sweeping across gestures, and he makes actions happen so people can see what's going on in the air. Barack Obama does the same thing.
We have increased oil production to the highest levels in 16 years. We have seen increases in coal production and coal employment.
Identifying stages of time can be a challenge. The audience sees time moving from left to right, past to future. A speaker, not understanding that perspective, may gesture in the opposite direction.
You know, not only oil and natural gas, which we've been investing in, but also we've got to make sure we're building the energy source of the future. Not just thinking about next year, but 10 years from now, 20 years from now. That's why we invest in solar and wind and biofuels.
How about the growth of the economy? It's growing more slowly this year than last year, and more slowly last year than the year before.
Beyond the use of timelines, the wider perspective of the town hall format allows candidates to use the entire stage area to confront one another.
You took General Motors bankrupt. You took Chrysler bankrupt. So when you say that I wanted to take the auto industry bankrupt, you actually did.
And keep in mind, when you were governor of Massachusetts, you stood in front of a coal plant and pointed at it and said, "This plant kills," and took great pride in shutting it down.
As the debate heated up, the candidates would square off directly to one another. I added word annotations throughout the piece so you can see the nonverbal cues that happen as the candidates interact with one another.
That's the strategy you need on all of the above strategies, and that's what we're going to do in the next 4 years.
But that's not what you've done in the last 4 years. That's the problem. Sure. In the last 4 years, you cut permits and licenses on federal land and federal waters in half.
Not true, Governor Romney.
So how much did you cut them by?
Not true.
By how much did you cut them by then?
Governor, we have actually produced more oil.
No. How much did you cut licenses and permits on federal land and federal waters?
Governor Romney, here's what we did. There were a whole bunch of oil companies.
No, I had a question, and the question was, how much did you cut them by?
You want me to answer
How much did you cut them by?
I'm happy to answer the question.
All right, and it is?
Here's what happened. You had a whole bunch of oil companies who had leases on public lands that they weren't using. So what we said was, you can't just sit on this for 10, 20, 30 years, decide when you want to drill, when you want to produce. when it's most profitable for you, these are public lands. So if you want to drill on public lands, you use it or you lose it.
Okay, now
and so what we did was take away those leases, and we are now reletting them so that we can actually make a profit.
And production on government lands is down.
No, it isn't.
Production on government land of oil is down 14%.
Governor,
and production on
you're
gas
saying
is down 9%.
It's just not true.
It's absolutely true. Look, there's no question but that the people recognize that we have not produced more oil and gas on federal lands and in federal waters. And coal production is not up. Coal jobs are not up. I was just at a coal facility where some 1,200 people lost their jobs. The right course for America is to have a true all-of-the-above policy. I don't think anyone really believes that you're a person who's going to be pushing for oil and gas and coal. You'll get your chance in a moment. I'm still speaking.
Well,
and the answer is I don't believe people think that's the case because that wasn't a question.
Okay.
That was a statement.
And while Mitt Romney took ownership of a brief scolding of the president, Barack Obama returned the favor shortly thereafter.
And the suggestion that anybody in my team, whether Secretary of State, our UN ambassador, anybody on my team would play politics or mislead when we've lost 4 of our own, Governor, is offensive. That's not what we do. That's not what I do as president. That's not what I do as commander-in-chief.
The president's brief show of strength and energy actually had an effect on Mitt Romney, who began to stumble over some of his words in the next sequence, and he gave Barack Obama an opening as Obama stood up, walked toward him as if to end the conversation.
It took them a long time to say this was a terrorist act by a terrorist group. And to suggest, am I incorrect in that regard? On Sunday, your secretary, the ambassador of the United Nations went on the Sunday television shows and spoke about how this was a spontaneous reaction.
I'm happy to have a longer conversation about foreign policy.
Absolutely, but I want to move you on, and also
I'm
people
happy to do
can
that
go
too.
to the.
Overall, both candidates brought a sense of energy to the town hall debate. Barack Obama redeemed himself from a prior performance where he did not have the same level of energy. Mitt Romney was relatively steady as he was in the first debate. However, in this one, Barack Obama actually moved away from being a candidate to being much more presidential, especially on the foreign policy. In essence, the town hall format allows each of the candidates to demonstrate strength, resolve, and a sense of action, even when confronting one another throughout the entire debate. Thank you for the opportunity to provide this analysis.